So just very quickly, last class we talked about risks in construction, and we looked at two projects, the project from hell as well as the Montreal Olympics, where the projects were severely delayed. And this is not an uncommon occurrence in large infrastructure projects. Many projects are delayed, and the delay is not by a month or two. Sometimes the delay is by several years. Sometimes the costs shoot up by large amounts. And when you look at the cash flows of a project, the capital costs of a project are the highest costs, right, on that balance sheet, on that spreadsheet. And so if the costs on the project spiral out, and if the time duration of the project gets longer, right, which means your revenues are going to come in further and further in the future, which means when you discount them to today's net worth, they are going to be worth less and less. You end up with economics of the project being completely warped. And in many cases, projects that on paper looked wonderful and financially stable, by the time they run into these overruns, cost and time overruns, primarily due to issues in the construction phase, they just sort of spiral out of control, right? So those are important risks, and those risks would be with regards to land acquisition, it could be with regards to material unavailability, weather conditions, and we really need to invest in better construction planning techniques, right? And that's where things like building information modeling and all of that some of you will study in construction management play an important role. While maybe not as high ticket, the operations and maintenance are also obviously critical to the functioning of the asset. So for instance, take for example the functioning of a metro rail system that you build in Chennai or wherever. Right, obviously for the infrastructure to work, trains have to be running periodically. There are a number of things that can stop trains from running periodically. For instance, there could be snags in the track, some of your mechanical electrical systems might not be working properly, your tunnel ventilation fans might have to be replaced. So anytime there's an operations and maintenance issue, a couple of things happen. Particularly if you don't predict it and catch it in time, essentially what happens is you have to stop the infrastructure. Right? And if you have to stop the running of that infrastructure, then that's loss of revenue, loss of value, etc. So it's very important to also think about risks in operations and maintenance. Typically, when you build a metro rail, for example, you probably know a tunnel ventilation fan can last for n number of years, right? Or this kind of signaling and telecommunication system will last for this long, and therefore I must replace it perhaps 3 months before it is scheduled to die, right? So there are certainly these maintenance schedules that you can come up with, but the point is that these need not, the equipment that you're talking about could fail even earlier, right? It's like if you buy a car, possibly people will tell you that the car could run for about 10 years, or that's the average life of a car. But your particular car, for whatever reason, you might be running it far more than anyone else, might break down in 4 or 5 years. Right? And at that point, so you need to also have what we need to have the preventive maintenance systems, right? Where essentially you're looking at and saying, I'm going to prevent the loss of any economic revenue generating activity by replacing or maintaining assets before they fail. Right? You also have to look at what we call predictive maintenance, right? Where you actually you've instrumented your devices, they can give you early warning signals that these have to be replaced, all of that, so that much before a failure, right, you actually start replacing the asset. Otherwise, you're left with what people call corrective maintenance. Corrective maintenance is after the fact, after something has failed, you start maintaining it. All right. So maintenance is also important in terms of there are risks that things could fail ahead of time, that could then stop the project temporarily, that could lead to loss of revenue, all of that, and we've got to invest in better decision systems to improve maintenance. If you take the case of a highway, right, we know that from time to time you will have to resurface the highway. There is sort of there is maintenance on, often you have what you call minor maintenance, which are repair works that are carried out on an annual basis, and then there is once in 5 years perhaps there is a major maintenance where you bring a milling machine, you take off the top layer of the road, you relay it, and so on, right? So there are those. Now the point is, when you do this, you are obviously going to be constraining the capacity of the road, right? What you don't want to do is eliminate the ability for people to use that road. You don't want to take all 6 lanes at the same time, do milling, and basically say for this month this road is closed, right? That is economically not the best solution. Socially also probably not the best solution, because people are relying on that mode of transfer. So as you've seen in many roads here, essentially what you do is you do it lane by lane, right? So you close off one lane to traffic, you do your repairs and maintenance works on those lanes, and then of course you keep moving lane to lane. So the speed with which you are able to do this, this renovation is critical, because the moment you start restricting lanes, clearly traffic congestion is likely to build up, provided it's a highway that is being used popularly. right? So there are metrics like, the mean time between failures, right, or the mean time to replace, that people often keep in mind and try to optimize so that you actually operate and maintain the infrastructure. Because let's face it, construction might take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? The asset is going to be there for the next 30, 35 years, right? So whether it's an airport, a metro, a railway, a port, a road, whatever, there is maintenance that needs to be done on an ongoing basis. Often, whenever you do maintenance, you're going to affect the capacity of that infrastructure, right? Which means you're going to reduce the potential for earning revenue, right? So then it becomes important for you to sort of think about, how do I minimize the disruption to my revenue streams or my value streams as a result of working on that infrastructure, right? Whether it's shutting down a runway for maintenance, whether it's shutting down a lane, etc. Because if you don't do this properly, again, your cash flows get affected. And while it might not have the same impact as a problem in the construction phase does, because the construction costs are much higher than operations and maintenance costs, you could still have all kinds of issues. And you never know when these failures are going to come from. For instance, in a road, there may be an accident on the road. Because of the accident on the road, the median has actually been damaged, right, which you now have to replace, because if you don't replace it, then there's the possibility for more accidents, or a particular lane is now non-functional, right? So it isn't as if this is all very nicely predictable. But again, that's where technology can help, whether it's satellite imagery, drone technology, building information models, whatever it is, trying to figure out if we can predict issues with with assets and do maintenance as far as possible ahead of time, right? And the old prevention is better than cure philosophy works here as well. So for instance, there are certain sections of roads which are likely to be accident prone, right? For whatever reason, there are curves, the visibility is not high, this is a mountainous section, accidents are likely to happen. Because accidents are likely to happen, your operations and maintenance cost in those sections are likely to be higher, right? So it's up to the developer to make investments to reduce the probability of doing that. So investments could range from better quality reflectors, which tell you about a curve coming far ahead of time, to just signboards, right, that tell you about tell you that a curve is coming in, that sort of warn you, speed thrills but kills, all of these kinds of. I saw a particularly hilarious one in when I was driving from Coorg to Mysore, which said, better to be Mr. Late than to be late Mr. Right? So I thought that was pretty funny. So there's all of these sort of signs that you can put in. In some cases, people even put graphic pictures, right, of road accidents just to deter people from riding fast. So whatever the strategy is, you can talk about safety strategy, but all of this is very important, because if you just sort of build the asset and let it run, then you might have maintenance issues, you might have accident related issues, all of which reduce the throughput of the infrastructure that you've built, all of which then reduce the bottom line. And if your 14% might suddenly become 11%, right, and that might not be what you are expecting. So operations and maintenance is also something to think about carefully, if not for any other reason, but for the fact that 50 years of the life of infrastructure, only 5 years is construction, right? The remaining 30, 40, 45, whatever years you have is operations and maintenance, and therefore that's a function that really needs to be thought through, risks need to be managed, okay? All right. So, we'll move on now to the next set of pretty big risks, which are economic risks, right? So we'll have group 8 who's coming forward, or if all of you are coming forward, come over and present your views on the, so you're not going to present the case study, you're presenting the Flavberg reading, and you're presenting the economic hitman, right? Okay.
Confessing a sin is the beginning of redemption. So today we are going to discuss the confessions of John Perkins. He was an economic hitman. So who is an economic hitman? So economic hitmen are highly paid professionals who help powerful countries like US to cheat poor countries by lending them more money than they can repay, and then they take over their economies. So what are the tools they use? The fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, extortion, and murder. So they put a condition that the contractors must be hailing from the lending country itself. So the money basically never leaves the lending country. It is just transferred from banking offices to engineering offices. So what do the countries who take the debt owe them? So they don't owe only the principal and the interest. They also take over their resources, and they have control over the votes in United Nations. This is how they add a country and expand their global empire. So sometimes in the name of debt forgiveness, they further exploit these countries by asking them to privatize their health, education and water sectors. And they asked to discontinue the subsidies and trade restrictions that support the local businesses. So this is the Ecuador case. In the Ecuador case, they took a debt to build a hydroelectric project over the Pastaza river. So what did the US really want? What they wanted was, there was a risk that the oil supplies might cease from the Middle East countries. So they wanted oil. They tried to get it from Iraq and Venezuela. Because of the political opposition, they couldn't succeed. But they succeeded in Ecuador. There was a local opposition, but it was not really known to the world. So over the 50% of national budget of Ecuador goes to paying the debt. And they also exploited the natural resources, like Amazon forests. They took the oil from them, and they don't get anything in return. So most of the money by extracting crude oil, like $75 goes to oil companies, $25 goes to foreign debts. After paying the debt, only like $3 goes for the welfare of the people. These are the views of John Perkins. So he worked at an international consulting firm for 10 years. There's an erroneous belief that the captains of the industry who drive the system should enjoy a special status. So there are a lot of income inequalities. Only the wealthy people, they enjoy the money more. There was a war. So US provided some $87 million to conduct this in Iraq. If only half of this money could be provided for diet, sanitation and education, every person in the world could enjoy these benefits. According to him, the 9/11 attacks were the result of actions of economic hitmen. So in the end, he says that no country or combination can thrive in the long term by exploiting others.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Lakshmikant. I'm going to present you about Bent Flisberg views on what you should know about mega projects and why. So mega projects are big projects which have the cost in billions, more than $1 billion US dollar, and followed by them are Terra projects which have costs in trillions of dollars. So these kind of big projects are increasing in numbers from previous few decades, and this is called by the author Bent Flisberg as Terra era. So the mega projects are generally designed to ambitiously change the structure of society, and these projects affect the society and cultural things of a country and on a large scale. These projects include the high-speed rail. These projects can be of many types, like high-speed rail lines, airports, seaports, motorways, and in fact information and communication technology projects, logistic systems like Amazon and other projects, and national broadband or internet connection projects, something like that. So for example, like China's high-speed rail project, International Space Station project, these are some of the biggest projects in the world. In India, some mega projects are like Gujarat International Finance Tech City, Gift City, and Delhi Mumbai Trade Corridor, etc. So growth in number of large projects have increased very fast in few decades, around 1.5 to 2.5% annually. So that's a lot of growth in big projects. The global infrastructure spending also has increased in few decades, like from 3.4 trillion US dollar per year have been expected by some companies. Okay, so according to author, there are 4 sublimes which affect the mega projects. Technological sublimes comes in effect when engineer and technologists get in pushing the project as tallest, longest or fastest, like Burj Khalifa is the tallest building, and in 1930 something around the tallest building in the world was 300 meters, but now Burj Khalifa is over 700 meters. So you can see the growth, how this has affected, technological sublime has affected the growth. So political sublime are somewhere when politicians affect the project in terms of their benefits, like to show the public that they are doing something, and in reality economic sublime, inclusion of huge investment and earnings which affect the projects on a economic level, including engineers, architects and other stakeholders. Aesthetic sublime, effect of design and creativity in large projects like Golden Gate Bridge or Sydney's Opera House. These are the means more of a design affected project. So benefits of mega projects are large employment generation, domestic inputs are there, less output from other countries, high quality services to consumers, competitive in productivity, improvement in environmentally sound infrastructure, and factors that are often ignored by these planners and decision makers in these large projects are long term and complex projects. These projects are large, long term and complex projects, and lot of processes involved in these projects. Lack of experienced expertise involved in this project, because number of these projects are not very much, but so the expertise is not that much in this project, and lot of small scale project engineers or project managers are involved in this kind of project. Inclusion of public and private entity on large scale, huge amount of money is involved, so conflicts are often happen or are likely to happen in this kind of project. Next, the iron law of mega projects: over budget, over time, over and over again. So what happens is cost overrun seems to be most prominent problem in mega projects since last 70 years, and it has not been reduced very effectively. In fact, cost overruns are high as 50% to more than 1000%. In Sydney Opera House, we can see more than 1000% was the cost overrun in the project. The major reason for such high cost overrun are error in estimating and the forecasting of business and cost benefit analysis, social and environmental impacts in planning and decision making phase. So these errors are due to causes the uncertainty in results and lead the project to failure or not giving us the results as expected. Time overrun is another cause of project failure. Time overrun also causes the further cost overrun and kind of creates a debt trap, which is cause the project to become non-viable, as the no revenue generation and another delay causes cost overrun. Break fix model. The mega project often leads to a trap where backing of the project causes more losses to investors than the leading with it. So they have to continue the project in order to hope of some benefits from that. In order to fix this problem, planners and managers often pause the project and reorganize and refinance the project. This is called break fix model. This is due to misleading information and forecasting in pre-planning phase. Hirschman suggests that if people knew in advance the real cost and challenges involved in delivering a large project, they probably would never have touched it. So nothing would have ever built. So instead of providing real cost and real information about the cost, we should hide some information and let the investors come, and the project should be started by itself. Sawyer suggests that creative error is to build mega and historically important project. Key to build mega and historically important projects where miscalculation and ignorance of real cost of the project led to launch in first place. Example, Panama Canal and Troy and Greenfield Railroad, where the ignorance of real cost of the project has been done so that project could be implemented. However, iron law trumps over these two theories as handling the problem as front end. Front end means beforehand, before the project implementation. In pre-planning phase, handling the problem in pre-planning phase is more beneficial than handling it or hiding the problem for the later time. So, survival of the unfittest. It is a concept given by the author that in common practice, the project, what happens is the project that looks best on the paper, that project may not be the best in the practical thing, as sir suggested earlier, that the overestimate of benefits and underestimate of cost causes the cost overrun and time overrun both in practice. And however, the project which seems to be fit in paper becomes unviable in reality. Lessons learned are optimism, bias and strategic misinterpretation are significantly better explanation of mega projects outcome than Hirschman's hiding a hand and Sawyer's creative error. Front-end management key is front-end management is the key to manage cost and benefit estimations more efficiently and reducing the chance of project failure. The project which seems to be best in paper may not be best in practical. So, cost underestimates and benefit overestimates should not be the sole factors to choose the project. Experience expertise must be included, and if we suggest, it is suggested by author to avoid time delays as it increases the cost overrun as well as the benefit of shortfall.
Before we get to the case, so today we had two papers or two articles that were presented, both of which are somewhat controversial. Okay, so we'll talk about them one by one and sort of see what we learned from them. The first one was the economic hitman article, right, or excerpt from the book by John Perkins. Okay, so what is the key message from that excerpt or from the book? Yeah, so vested interests that large countries have when they deal with large infrastructure projects, right? So essentially, Harsh, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by vested interests? Right. So very often what happens is that countries seek aid from other countries, and it's not just financial aid, it's also technical aid, right? So any government, for instance, hires a set of consultants, and we might hire consultants from other parts of the world who might have the expertise there. So for instance, water, one might look at countries like the Netherlands, right, who have done a good job of managing water, and therefore when Chennai wants to deal with its potential flooding problem, there is possibly some recourse to saying, let's bring in people from the Netherlands to help us, right? Or it could be, oil, you have these countries with oil but without the technical capability of leveraging those oil fields. Let's start bringing in some of these large American companies and consultants who understand how to projectize, these situations, right? So you tend to sort of take assistance from other consultants, right? The expectation is that the consultant is an expert, somewhat neutral, who comes and essentially studies the project and gives you the best recommendation, right? So the consultant says, this is the technology you should adopt because this is the best technology for your soil condition, right? This is the number of barrels of oil that you can possibly get out of the ground, and therefore this is the kind of price that you should charge for it. This is where you should sell it. So the consultant is expected to be an expert. It's theoretically, it should have nothing to do with them being American or Australian or Indian or Russian or whatever, right? So that person's a technical expert is the expectation. So you bring in the best consultant. What John Perkins says is the consultant's motives are clearly not that altruistic, right? So the consultant comes in with an ulterior motive. In this case, the consultant, he says, is sort of supported by the US government to improve in various ways the political economy of the United States. So for instance, they may come in and give you recommendations to build projects that may not necessarily need to be built, right? But they still give you a recommendation. So now that they've recommended that you need to build this project, you then start borrowing money right, to build the project. Where do you borrow the money from? Perhaps from banks in the same country, right? So you might go to the United States and you might say, okay, lend me money for this, right? The project is also designed in a certain way where the technical expertise or the machinery, etc., might reside with contractors in the US, right? So you are a country somewhere in Latin America. You go in and you say, look, these consultants have recommended I do this project. Can the United States lend me $100 billion? The United States says, okay, $100 billion get transferred. Then that money is taken and given to contractors in the US, right, who will actually perform the task. So the money comes in from the US, it goes back into the US. But now the country here needs to repay the debt because they've taken a loan. Okay, what happens? The amount of oil that was supposed to be there in the ground is now not there in the ground, right? And therefore the revenues that you are generating are probably a fraction of what you wanted to generate, and as a result of which you can't repay the loan, right? Because you can't repay the loan, you are now further in the debt of, in this case, the United States, right? Who says, okay, if you can't repay the loans, then here are other things that we can do. Can you give us some kind of a tax incentive to do this? Can you give us rights to develop this other oil field somewhere? And so there's a, reminds you a little bit about the Arabian Nights story of the Arab and the camel and the tent. No, there's an Arab in the tent, doesn't let the camel in. The camel says, can I put my nose in, right, because it's really cold? And he says, fine. And the camel says, can I put my ears in because I'm really cold? And the Arab says, fine. And then slowly, the entire body of the camel comes in, and the Arab says, look, there's no place for the two of us. And the camel says, I'm not moving, right, out you go. So, so this is essentially what John Perkins talks about. What do you guys feel? How true do you think it is? One way of doing it is to be able to control infrastructure, right, in other countries. Now, this could essentially be, I'll give you money to build the infrastructure, therefore I have control. Or it could be the Perkins argument of, I actually am not asking you to use American contractors, but I will design the project in such a way that you end up taking American funding and American contractors, and then sooner or later, before you know it, you're caught in a trap. So if you look across geopolitically, so Perkins says this is the truth. Right, this is the absolute truth, nothing but the truth. And I don't know, I think it's been a while since I read it end to end, but I think somewhere in the book or maybe elsewhere in an interview, he says he can't reveal the location that he is at right now, because now that he's published the book, the moment anyone knows where he is, he will be instantly silenced. And so he adds an extra layer of drama to it. I mean, I don't know, I think it might be drama, it might actually be the real thing. But he actually is very, very clear that consultants who essentially help projectize opportunities, right, do not necessarily do it with the right intentions in mind. They do it with the intention to promote, in this case, the US interest or the Chinese interest or whatever. What that therefore means is when the project starts running, the actual demand for that project is often not as high as the projected demand. Right? It's because I projected the demand extremely high that I've convinced you to borrow all this money and build it, and the actual project, and then therefore the project runs into all kinds of problems, and then you'll have to think about creative ways of resolving it, right? So that's John Perkins's view on on life and how this works. Okay, what does Bent Fleifberg say? The other article that Lakshmikant just presented, right? What is his view? Does he subscribe to this view of economic hitmen? Does he have an alternate explanation? Any idea on what does Fleifberg say? He has a couple of things that Fleifberg proposes, right? One is that he says people are obsessed with these large projects, right? They're obsessed with these large projects. Engineers like these large projects because they're technological marvels. In fact, I was in a very interesting meeting which was sort of in part chaired by the government of Tamil Nadu, where a pretty senior person said, engineers want to build only big things. Right, so you want to build interlink rivers, you want to sort of build large sewage treatment plants, etc. Right, and if you want to build small things, then you are not an engineer, you are an NGO. Right, because everyone thinks that engineers need to build big things, only NGOs need to do all of these community level sanitation and rural roads and all of that. Right, so there is this hang up about engineers only wanting to sort of build spaceships to go to the moon, etc. So that's what he calls the technical or the technological sublime. Right, all these engineers are really keen on building big things, and therefore that gives a push to mega projects. Politicians also, the same thing. I would rather build this huge dam and cut the ribbon and make it a big photo opportunity that might help me win the next elections, rather than whatever, go and open something small somewhere, a small 5 MLD desalination plant. Why would I do that versus 100 million liters a day desalination plant that looks really nice, pictures behind me? So there's a political sublime. Then he sort of says, then there's sort of the aesthetic sublime of essentially architects and people sort of talking about, as Lakshmikant was saying, looking at Burj Khalifa and saying, isn't this an architectural wonder, right? Isn't this an iconic building? If I draw that shape of the Burj Khalifa, anyone, even a child today could probably recognize that this is what I'm sort of drawing. Sydney Opera House, right? If I sketched it out, even if I did a very poor job of sketching it, you would instantly recognize. So there is an appeal in sort of building things that have that worldwide recall. And then what was we talked about technological, political, and then there's the whole economic sublime, right? Where people say, look, only if you build large projects are you creating large economic opportunities. Right, so there's no point, building, getting a few extra buses and making your bus transit system more streamlined. Let's build large metro rail, right? Because we're going to create a lot of jobs. Imagine the thousands of people who are going to be employed. Imagine the thousands of people whose travel time will be saved, or will be able to go from one end of the city to another at very affordable rates. And imagine the boost that will give the economy, right? And none of this is possible when you do a small project. Right, so small projects don't really give you those kinds of economic arguments. They don't give you those aesthetic arguments, political arguments, technical arguments, right? And so because people sort of like projecting themselves, he says people go in for mega projects, but these mega projects obviously are mega costly, right? And one of the things that ends up happening is people do something, maybe not exactly what economic hitmen do, but do what Lakshmikant also called strategic misrepresentation. Right, if I went in with the true cost of the facility, nobody would approve, right? And so I deliberately go in with a lower cost, justified, and as the project progresses, more and more costs get added on. But at that point, it's too late to withdraw, right? So we have to go ahead and complete the project, and we'll see sort of examples of this later on in the class, right? The London Olympics being a classic example of a case where when London won the Olympics, according to a paper that one of my colleagues from Portugal wrote, well, he's now lives in Manchester, the cost was quoted at about £1 billion, I think, and when the project came through, when the Olympics actually happened, it came out at about 8 or 9 billion pounds, right? So 8 or 9x was the cost overrun on that project, okay? The other thing he also talks about, which is a psychological condition called what's the psychological condition? Right, the psychological condition is called what he calls the optimism bias, which he says generally people tend to be far more optimistic when a task is in front of you, right? So even though you might know that historically it's taken people 10 hours to do this piece of work, when you're gung-ho and ready to go, you often think that you can do it in 8 hours, right? You think it's just a matter of putting in the right kind of effort, putting in the right kind of planning. People in the past did something differently. I mean, they were not motivated. I can do better, right? Is often so even though you know that most projects take 6 years to complete, you have no problems committing to a 5-year completion, thinking that it's all about if I can bring in better technology, etc., all of this can be done. It wasn't possible earlier, and you convince yourself and you become quite optimistic. In both these cases, what happens is the final economics of the project tend to be very different from the initial economics of the project. Right? So particularly in these large projects where capital costs are particularly important, cost overruns tend to be extremely high, right, at the start of the project. Demand tends to be much lower because you tend to have built something very often much bigger than what was necessary at the time, right? As a result of which you may not make as much revenue as you have. So both of these guys talk about why projects fail from an economic perspective, from a cost perspective, and both of them talk about the fact that your initial costs tend to be much higher than what your actual costs tend to be much higher than your initial costs. Your actual demand and revenue tend to be much lower, right? And there are competing explanations, right? Perkins says it's all a game. It's a deliberate game played by certain countries to increase their sort of standing in the world, right? Fleifberg said it doesn't have anything to do with country. It has something to do more with policy makers, decision makers, a general optimism, right? Whatever. It's sort of just a state of mind or a state of being. We tend to be more optimistic. We try to strategically misrepresent, as a result of which we end up with projects where we convince ourselves that the cost will be X and the demand will be Y, and very often the costs are much higher than we expect, the demand is much lower. Okay, and these are the challenges, right? So what we'll do is, where's group 3? So come over, present, and so we'll talk about this is the Vadodara Hallol toll road case, right? Again, very close to, not very close, but in India, I think people are familiar with Vadodara or Baroda in Gujarat, and this is a road connecting Baroda to Halol. And we look at this project, and sort of essentially this is a project that went through certain economic risks, right? So let's sort of understand what happened on this project, and then let's try to connect it with Perkins or with with Flyberg to see if there's any correlation between what these people say and the troubles that this project has. So how do you realize whether there's an economic hitman? It's very difficult, because the point is there is also some benefit to the country. Right. So, for instance, if somebody is actually putting money into India, whether it's the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is essentially a Chinese bank at the moment, or the Asian Development Bank, or JICA, or whatever, it's all foreign money coming in, there is a benefit to us, because it also allows us to build our infrastructure, right? The question is, what level of scrutiny are we doing with regards to the project arrangement? So somebody comes and puts in a project report on your desk, are you just accepting it as given, or are you saying, okay, that's an initial input, let me also get another team of experts to cross-check some of those assumptions, right? So those are the kinds of safeguards that you build to see if the data that you have is correct. Right, because the whole rationale behind economic hitmen is that they are massaging, and also what Flyberg says in terms of strategic misrepresentation, optimism, bias, everything comes down to there are some facts that are put on the table to justify a project. Those facts are incorrect. So once you start off a project with incorrect facts in terms of costs and revenues, then at certain point of time, you as a project certainly lose, somebody else gains. Okay, so then it's up to you to check those facts. Right? It's up to you to sort of have enough due diligence, enough methodological rigor, that when a project report comes in that says this project is feasible, this is the demand, that you are able to actually believe those numbers. Right? So that's the only way you can really determine whether it's an economic hitman or not. You're not concerned. You want your project to go ahead. Okay? All right. So come over. Let's talk about the Vadodara Halol case.